See, Doug, you get to sing and get the Guyana Report if you stay here. It's a win-win. It certainly is a win-win. Thank you all for being here tonight. Greatly appreciate it. I got two other guys that are going to go before me, and wanted to kind of lay some groundwork for what's getting ready to happen. We took a mission trip to Guyana. We returned a week ago. They returned a week ago Friday. I got back Tuesday evening late, and it was not the best trip I've ever had to Guyana. It wasn't. It was a great trip, but it wasn't the best trip that we've had. We had some difficulties while we were there, and not difficulties as far as health or those kinds of issues, but been communicating for 4 months prior to going, and when we got to the village where we were going, they were not ready for us. And so we were not able to do all the things we had hoped to do while we were there, though we were able to do some things while we were there. And so it was not as productive as we would have hoped it would have been, but the remainder of the trip went as planned. That was the only real snafu that we had along the way. Going to start with Trent Nighswonger. Trent Nighswonger, world traveler, missionary extraordinaire. Had never been out of the Northwest before. And he lands in Miami, and he's on a foreign planet. Because if you know Miami and you know the Northwest, they're nothing alike. You breathe the same air, but it is very different. And we're standing there. I'm gonna pick at you a little bit, and then you can pick on me when you come up here. And we're standing out there waiting to get on the shuttle to go to the airport to leave the day after we arrived in Miami. And we were talking about humidity, and he goes, man, he says, this is just, how do you even explain this? This is so bad. It's just so humid. And I said, wait till we get to Guyana. And, around here, 30%, 40% in the summertime, and, we're just like, and down there it's 70% when it's not humid. And in Guyana, it was, especially after it rained one night, it was pretty close to 100% humidity. So it was very different for him. It was different than what Chris and I and Angie Sunday, who many of you have met, has been on several trips. It's different. She lives on the Gulf Coast, and it's pretty humid for them, and she was complaining about the humidity when we got there. So it was the fall equinox, and we were just a little over 100 miles above the equator, so you can imagine how hot the sun was beating down on us. I was wearing sunscreen on the trip going into Yupikari, and my hands are peeling from the sunburn I received wearing sunscreen. So it was Guyana. What can you say? So I'm going to turn over to Trent for a few minutes, and when he is done, Chris is going to come up, and then I'll wrap things up at the end.
All right, so good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I just wanted you see, Wyatt saved me there because I was probably going to mess up and do the same thing, but now that he said something, it makes it a whole lot better. So I didn't know I was going to speak before Mark, so I'm having the difficulty of talking about my experiences without trying to spoil anything for him. So I just wanted to start off by thanking every single person in here. I know that everybody can't go down to Guyana, and so a lot of people have to stay back. And I just really appreciate everybody that, all the support, my family. Some people gave me money donations, and other people were just, they were supporting me here at church. And I just really appreciate that. So, but, one of the things that always amazes me down there in Guyana is how grateful the people are. That's one of the most major things I noticed down there. And I'm sure that Mark has told you this story before, but there was an old man that he bought, a jumbo print Bible, and he was weeping over the fact that he was able to read his Bible after, his eyes went bad because he was from age. And that pretty much, that changed my, it's kind of, going down there and seeing, like, the little kids wandering around, they're so happy, but, they're all of them are thirsty down there, and all of them are hungry, and it's just amazing coming back here and seeing the simple things anew, like water from the tap that you can actually drink, and the roads that doesn't take you 3.5 hours to go 40 miles on, and things like that. But yeah, it was such an amazing experience down there, and the people, everybody was nice. They're always shaking your hand, and everybody's very respectful, and but yeah, my personal experience down there was everything was new. So I mean, if I would talk about everything that happened to me that was new down there, I'd be talking all night. So I'll just give you the highlights. So like Mark said, I've never been down there. So I mean, I've never been really out of the Northwest. California is as far as I've gone. So I mean, yeah, just landing in Miami and how hot it was, and even the accents that people spoke down there, it was just such an all of it was pretty much brand new to me. So it was definitely great though. But yeah, I got to learn what it was like to fly in a small airplane for 3 hours, no, it wasn't 3. It was probably only 2, right?
Around 2 hours.
Yeah, around 2 hours. But yeah, like Mark said, unfortunately, we didn't get to do a whole lot of what we wanted to do when we were in Yupikari itself. But and that was unfortunate. I mean, we wanted to get a little bit more productiveness done, but we weren't quite able to do that. We were able to do some things, like we obviously ran the gospel mission tonight, which was really great. We really love that. And Angie and wherever Chris were able to give some people some medical advice and things like that, which is pretty great down there. I mean, the medical stuff they have down there is not the best. You have to have a doctor to prescribe medicine specifically down there. I mean, but the nurses we have here are probably better than their doctors, medical training wise. But yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say. I just wanted to pretty much thank everybody, and I let you guys all know that it was an amazing experience I had down there. It was so beyond what I imagined. Just the fact of how different everything was and how new it all was. And so Chris wanted to come up here next. Hand it off to him.
I'm going to speak from down here, because if I stand up there, you won't be able to see around me to see the pictures. So,
Nice shirt, by the way.
thank you. This is from the Cayman House, and so how do you turn this on?
It's on.
It's on?
Just this button right here, this direction. There you go.
So anyway, talking about this shirt, this is from the Cayman House, and you'll see a picture of where we stayed a little bit later on. And I mentioned to Angie that the Cayman House would be like staying at the Ritz-Carlton, and we're like Motel 6, to give you an idea of the changes in accommodations. But that's, and I'd like to thank everybody also as well for the support that we got. It's really great that we're able to do that. This is, of course, Trent and I, we were, being it was his first trip and all, out of where we wanted to get memorialize his first airplane ride on a jetliner. So that's what that is. And a couple of pictures of out of the window. I like a window seat, so I try to hog the window seat whenever I can. But then I got to thinking about Trent's experience, and when we changed planes, I let him play with the window seat so he could see. This is at our hotel in Miami, and see if I can figure this out. There's a little, this little stand here. That's an update on all the hurricanes that are in the Gulf, and Mark says they update those about every 6 to 12 hours. So persons that stay at the hotel can keep track of where those are and where they need to make different travel arrangements. Um, our luggage didn't make it to Miami on time. We didn't get our luggage till the next day. So I had to purchase some clothes. So being in Miami, I hit Miami. Oops. Got me a Miami t-shirt, so I have souvenir for Miami. It's a little dark. I have a hard time getting this selfie thing down, so sorry. And then this is aboard the window announcing our Caribbean Airlines trip from Miami to Port of Spain, Trinidad, which last year is where I almost wound up in jail. Well, here I'm used to putting everything in the baskets when you go through security. So I took my shoes off and was set them in the basket, and the security person says, "No, sir." Okay, no what? So I go to put my shoes in again. A little more emphatic, "No, sir." And after the fourth time, I realized she was getting kind of aggravated and kind of stepped for me. Then I saw the sign, "Don't put your shoes in the baskets." So after that, everything was cool. Of course, leaving in the evening, we had a nice little sunset out of the window there. And going from Lethem to Yubakari at the airport, this nice little insect was on the wall, and I decided to get his picture because I hadn't seen anything quite like that before. And it was perfect. This is all of us on the, I'm still trying to get that selfie thing down. But we're doing okay. Oh, split screen. How about that? Okay. So this is on the little itty bitty plane, which would be kind of what Trent is hoping to finish his education. He wants to be a bush pilot or a missionary, taking people in and out in the foreign countries. And this is the kind of the plane that he would be on if he were to be doing that. And everybody's still smiling. As far as I know, he still plans to do that. Yep. This is Georgetown, kind of coming in there. This is after we're over coming in. And it's a pretty good sized town. So this Savannah Inn would be Lethem's equivalent to the Walmart. They sell everything there, or a Kmart. It's all in there. It's clothes, dry goods, canned goods, drinks and stuff. And this is at our, where are we at? This is the hotel where we stayed at in Lethem. And it was very nice. Okay. This is outside of the hotel. Very nice looking. And I made the remark to Angie that those are familiar with Doctor Who. This is like his TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside than it looks from the outside. It goes back quite a ways. There's over 35 rooms. It's got a big, huge patio that you'll see here in a minute. It's very, very huge. The food was very good. So this is at Moku Falls, and I'm sure that Mark will talk about this later, about being at the falls. But this was a power plant that was built by the Chinese. And they had some kind of a rock slide, and it flooded, and it's ruined. It can't be used. Amit, who is our go-between person, It says that there are plans for the government to try and bring it back online so they can have additional power. This is the outside of it. It's really close to the falls. And this is up where the falls is. It's a nice little pool there. It's got fish in it. And that's Amit. And there's everybody taking a swim. The current, there's an inflow of water that's back in here that flows this way, and it's a very strong current. Keeps pushing people off to the side. But what'd you say? It was, Trent dove into it and went all the way down and put his hands up so we get an idea of how deep it was. And he had about 2.5, 3 feet above the fingertips. And that's how deep that deepest part of the hole was. Very deep. This is Eileen and her daughter. It's Amit's wife. And then reflecting in nature. And I know last year we showed some of the ant hills and give you an idea how big that is. And there's Trent's right here, and top of it's up there, so it's pretty good size. And this is at the graduation at the school, and that was very nicely done. Couple of pictures there. I forget this gentleman's name. Doug? John Langer. He and Mark share the teaching duties at the school. And students were very happy to see that. There's the group. And that's the husband and wife team? No? That's the next class.
Yes.
Okay. But they're all very happy that their studies are now over. Very good. And these are all former students. You had somebody from every class, right? All but one class. So that was a pretty good reunion. Good show of support for current students and for those that are starting the next round. Very nice. And this is Brother Joseph. He's in a wheelchair. He went through the classes and did very well. He's a very happy man. And those of, I apologize, if you're friends with me on Facebook, you've probably seen the majority of these already, and I apologize for that. But, Angie was handing out Bibles and a copy of Vine's New Testament. Is it New and Old Testament? Both? Old and New Testament words to all the graduates. And they were very happy to receive those. So this is back at the hotel there, and like you said, this is in the back. It's a nice huge patio, and there's some I guess you'd call them suites in the back. They're like miniature apartments in the back. And then this is their pet parrot. Couldn't get it to say much, but he was trying to get out of that cage. And this is in the evening time, getting ready for evening service to start. And a lot of the kids and stuff are still playing outside. And, big advertisement for Seattle there on his shirt. And Angie's taking the children out for their children's time while the adults had a class and a lesson there. And everybody just kind of swarms around Angie all the time. I think Mark's got a picture of her being swarmed by all the children. I mean, all you see is the top of her curly hair. I mean, crazy. Okay, and this is the outside of our Motel 6 here. It's very good. Cayman House is off over here somewhere. About a 3-minute walk. And there's a tank for your hot water. Gets heated during the day. So hot water is kind of a premium quality to have. This is Brother Thomas, who's he and Mark kind of split the lessons up in the evening service time. He does a real excellent job. Of course, another sunset. In case you can't tell, I'm kind of partial to those.
We need to go beyond the sunset. Those blissful morning.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll have to try and learn that somewhere. And this is another show on the plane. We're fixing to head back to Georgetown. And then here's, this is a map. And we're down, I think, somewhere around in here. Further south, about there. So, it's a long trip. And this is the Hotel Pegasus. This is our, I guess it's become our official lunchtime debriefing spot on our way out. This is in Georgetown. And the food is very good. And one of the major things is that we got to eat ice cream. But that's it for me. We had a lot of very good trip. As Mark had mentioned before, we didn't get to do the things that we needed to do or had hoped to do, but got to go around and visit some of the congregation in their own houses, and got to do a few blood pressure checks and check their blood sugar and check on. And they are all very grateful and thankful that we're there, and only wish that we were able to do more. Hopefully in February, when we have a good medical team, that will be accomplished then. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Again, I want to thank Chris and Trent. I want to thank all of you for everything that you put into this trip. Your prayers, the donations, quite a few things that I'm also going to be pointing out in my part of the presentation that we took as well. But we were able to plan our trip for February, and our medical team will be going in the first week of February. Then I'll be staying behind to teach for 2 more weeks in school. The first term of the new class begins in January, and Thomas George, that you just saw, is the director of the school, and he will teach the first 2 weeks. I will teach the second 2 weeks, and then they go for a month, and then they go home for 2 months, and they come back for a month, and they're there for home for 2 months, and that's how they go for 2 years. And so they get an intensive study, and then they get to go to their villages and follow up and do some teaching and preaching from what they've learned as they go through this program. So we do have our dates set for that, and I'm looking forward to a number of you being a part of that trip as well, coming up in February. It's going to be here before we know it. My passport expires today. So I came home, and that's like the most important thing I need to get done, and I haven't gotten it done yet. So I'll be working on that tomorrow. So pray for me. I'm having to deal with the government, okay? All right, let's look at a few things. I want to go backwards here just a little bit. This picture, which I also have a copy of, but I'm not going to pull it up. I didn't put it in my presentation because when Chris brought me his pictures, I figured there's no reason to duplicate it. Georgetown's up here. Trinidad is right up here. It's about a 55-minute flight. We fly from Miami. It's up here behind the mantle, all the way down 3.5 hours to Trinidad. We have an hour-and-a-half layover, and then it's about an hour flight into Georgetown. Well, the airport's down here, and then we have to drive an hour back into Georgetown to our hotel. And then there's a small airport called Ogle, and it's right there off of the water. And that's where we hop on the minibus with wings, right here. And we fly down to Lethem, which is here. And as Trent mentioned, it's about a 40 or 45 mile trip to Upakari, which is right up here, where the rainforest and the savanna, there's the savanna region, where they mix, and that's what's known as the bush. And that's where the fertile ground is, and you find a lot of villages in that area because they farm. Well, right now with the road conditions, it's a 3-hour trip. They had an excessive rainy season. The main road was rutted out because we had rain the night before we traveled. There were extreme mud holes that traversed the entire road. Then the secondary road that went to Upakari is a levee road, and it was underwater for 3 months. And it was filled with potholes that were filled with water. And as I was riding the motorcycle in following the truck, when I had to go through the water, it felt like spilling hot coffee on my feet. That's how hot the water was in the mud holes. So it was a very difficult trip, and we came back on Wednesday evening from Upakari because we had a flight the next morning, and we had to drive 3 hours at night on those roads, and it was quite precarious, to say the least. Okay, here's the missionary extraordinaire. All right, this is before he knew better than to quit smiling, okay? And as you saw when he was up here, he still hadn't quit smiling. So I don't know, he didn't learn his lesson, I guess. This is when we got on the plane before we took off. He was so excited about the entire trip. He was very helpful. Every time I asked him to do something, he did it. Never questioned, always did a great job, and I can't wait for him to go back. I told him, when you go back, all the new things that you saw this time will be old, and you'll see new things. And each subsequent trip, you'll see something new that you didn't see before because you missed it for looking at something you hadn't seen. This is the truck. It is packed with people and provisions. We took Bibles, we took coloring books, we took dresses, we took food, cooking supplies. We took everything we had because you can't get anything where we're going. An interesting little aside, on the gas cap it says, as you can read, gas. I was making fun of Ahmed at first for his new truck because it says gas on the gas cap, like what else would it be? And then he told me that the person that had the truck before him, if I looked at the decal on the front, the truck's a diesel. And they converted it over to a gas engine. And so they wouldn't put diesel in it. He had to put a sticker that says gas on it. So when they fill it up, they don't look at the decal. They actually look at the gas cap that says gas. There he is, World Explorer. He had a great time. We had a free day early on the trip instead of at the end of the trip because we did have to make a quick trip back. So we went up to the Mocha Mocha Falls right before graduation and before our trip to Upakari. This is him standing beside the falls here, and just a super young man. I want to commend him to everyone. His parents have done an outstanding job, and everyone should have a child that turns out like this guy. He's a super kid. This whole trip's about people. Every time we go, it's about the people, and that's the connections and the relationships that are built are the most important thing. This is Thomas George's daughter. She works for an ecological society in Guyana, and she spends most of her time in the bush, in the rainforest, doing experiments and all those kinds of things, taking foreign groups in to do research. That's what she does for a living. She studied in Trinidad at the university, got her degree there in environmental sciences. Bright, beautiful, great Christian young lady. This is her with Angie Sunday. They got to meet for the first time. Well, she came out of the rainforest for one reason, and that was to attend the graduation and support the students. She made a special trip out, and then, of course, we got to spend time with her, and then she was turning around to go back to where she was going. This is right before we left for Upakari on Monday morning. As was mentioned by Chris, Angie and her bushy blonde hair are quite an anomaly in Guyana. She is easily recognizable when we go to a village, especially where she's been before, and the children absolutely adore her. She has twin grandsons who just turned 6, and she misses them desperately when she's away from them, and these are her surrogate grandchildren. And as you can see, there she is, and where did she go? You can see just a little bit, and they are absolutely mobbing her, and she would take her phone out and show pictures. She would do all kinds of things, but she also took several bags of candy, which made her even more popular. She asked them the last time she was there what they wanted. They said bubble gum and chocolate. Well, chocolate doesn't do well in that environment, so she improvised and took Tootsie Rolls. And that worked. They were soft, but they didn't melt. So that worked really well. And after she gave it to the kids, the picture that you saw of Angie and one of Chris's pictures right here, do you know why the adults are around her right here? They're coming for candy too, by the way. They're getting their turn. Okay. Now, I spoke at the school and was talking to the students, and they came by where we were staying. And they were looking in her window, in her room. Fortunately, she wasn't changing clothes. And they had heard from a certain person that spoke at their school that morning that this lady had candy. And so they showed up. Well, the first thing she said was, "I'll give you a piece now, but if you want some more, you need to come to church." And we had more children than we had adults at church all week. These beautiful dresses right here, there's a lady in Franklin, Kentucky, and Sister Betty is in her 80s. She's had a stroke, and she can no longer make dresses, but she has sent over 1,000 dresses into the mission field that she makes by hand. And I had some of her dresses that I had not had a chance to take yet, and I brought them to Debbie Johnson. Thank you, Debbie. These children don't have anything. And what they do have are hand-me-downs, and mostly hand-me-downs from Americans that have sent clothing down there. And for them to have a new dress is something that is just out of this world. So this is Elroy, the preacher's daughter, Violet. And she had grown about a foot since I saw her last, and we were scared to death she was not going to be able to fit into any of the dresses. And we had some size 12s, and they fit her. And she wore a new dress every night. So thank you very much. That is invaluable to the work that we're doing there. Here's the school building where I spoke on Tuesday morning. And I went in early, and the building is divided by chalkboards. They have math station, and they have English station, and all this, and all of the children, they wear uniforms, And you can see them moving the petitions here, and they moved them out of the way to create one big room, and I got to speak to the children for about 10 or 15 minutes and introduce them to the American that was there in their village and invite them to come to services. They would, when school was out, they would come to the church building. And thanks to Bryna and some of our other ladies who sent a bunch of coloring books down. Where did Bryna go? Okay, there you are. You moved to the back. The children would come and they sent crayons and they would spend their time coloring Bible stories in the afternoon. Moses in the burning bush. And I have a lot of these. Some of these they even put their names on. And I brought these back, and I'll set these out when we're done so you can come look at these. They're yours. Thank you. Those made a world of difference. We were able to reach children. Because we weren't able to do what we had planned to do, we were able to reach a school full of children. And they were not only there in the afternoons, but they would come to the evening services and have Bible lessons, and most of them were not associated with the church. So it was pretty amazing. And while they were in there coloring, I got Trent, and I said, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go in there and talk to them and ask them if they know the Bible lesson, and you're going to talk to them about it. And so he would go through, and there's this 12-foot tall white dude coming through there. It doesn't look like anybody down there. There's nobody any close to as tall as Trent is. And he's walking through and he's talking to the children. And then, of course, afterwards they would come up to him and they would follow him around. And it was very, very good outreach to spend some time with those children. And this was the gateway. So thank you, Bryna, for making that happen. As Chris mentioned, the graduation from Guyana Christian University was during our time there. It just so happened to work out that way. Second graduation I've been able to attend, and it is a great blessing to be with the students, especially when they graduate. Here they are coming in. No, this is as they're going out, excuse me. After they've received their diplomas, they're exiting. This is during this ceremony, and Chris is giving them a standing picture. I was going to say standing ovation, but he was actually just snapping pictures there. But they sat up here in the front. Family members, former students came to the ceremony to support these individuals. I was blessed to be able to speak at their graduation. This is John Langham, who was pointed out to you by Chris earlier. He's an elder at the Eastern Shore Church of Christ in Daphne, Alabama. That is on the eastern side of Mobile Bay in Baldwin County, and they are the church that these elders oversee the school, and he makes 3 trips a year to teach in the school out of his own pocket. He's a retired school teacher. Here they are following and having their pictures made. This is Stephen Andres from up in Anai District. That's Brian Alfonso from Upakari. That's Dolan Roberts. He and Alita Brown are both from Katoka. This is Helbert John. He's from up in the Pacarema Mountains, up in Region 8. And then there's Joseph Adventura, the one that's in the wheelchair. If you have seen my reports the last couple of years, you've seen quite a few pictures of Joseph. He is a delightful person. He was stabbed when he was in the Army by his bunkmate, who stabbed him in the back and nicked his spine. His bunkmate was drunk. He became violent, stabbed him. He lived in depression, anger, alcohol abuse, and contemplated and even attempted suicide. And then one of our campaigns knocked on his door. And now he's a graduate of the school. And he is helping with the preaching duties at the church in Lethem. And he is one of the most upbeat, positive people you will ever meet. When you talk about transformation, Joseph Aventura is the guy. These are former students who showed up. Of course, there's Thomas George, the director of the school. I don't know who that guy is. John Langham. So there's 3 of the instructors from the school. And there's Philip Duncan from the first class of students. This is John Campion. He is the preacher in Mokomoko, where the waterfall was. He's the preacher at the church there, which is also Thomas's home village. He's from the second batch of students. This is Ernesto John. He's from the second batch of students. He went over into Brazil and established the church in Brazil and preaches there in Bonfim on the other side of the river. This is Glenn Brown. He's from Aishalton, which is down in the deep south. He's a Wapshana, and he is preaching in a Makushi village of Napi. The Makushi and the Wapshana were at war for hundreds of years, and now they're preaching and teaching each other the gospel. This is Archer Moses. He's from the third class of students. He preaches in Kotoko, where 2 of the graduates are from. And so we have these individuals, they come back and support the students, and it's just amazing to see them supporting one another and encouraging one another. We had a banquet for them following graduation with a great dinner, which you can see Trent is enjoying there. The students and their wives and or dates were in this area. This is Alita Brown. She's not married, and that's Archer Moses, the preacher from her village, and she asked him to come with her, so he came there not only to support them, but he also attended with her. And we have Dolan Roberts and his wife, Albert John. He had no one with him, and then some of the other students over here. And here they are following. At the graduation banquet, I had Bibles for each of them, and Angie had purchased Vine's Bible word dictionaries for each of them. She asked me what would be the most helpful resource that she could buy, and she didn't have room because of all of her candy and everything else she was taking. So she drop shipped them to me, and I had 3 suitcases and or trunks that all were right at 50 pounds for all the things that I had to take, and also had Chris take a 50-pound trunk with him of some of the supplies that we needed for the trip. This was our trip to Mokomoko Falls. It's a beautiful place. I've been up there in the winter during the dry season, and it's not as impressive, though it's still impressive during that time. You can see there's Chris, white floppy hat gives it away. That's Amit right there. This is looking from up in this area up here, taking the picture back down to the bottom of the falls. We were able to hike up, enjoy the view, get in the water and cool off a little bit. Chris just soaked his feet. Angie. Okay, there's Angie. Angie was not going to go swimming. And we had to cross. Well, I didn't get the picture in there. We had to cross the lower part of the creek in order to get in, and the rocks were extremely slippery. So, and it was about crotch to waist deep water, and it's flowing pretty good, and it's slippery rocks. So Amit and I were helping Chris across before Angie, and Amit had just turned to Angie and said, "Stay right there. We're going to get Chris across. We'll be right back for you." And she says, "Okay." And the next thing we heard was a splash. She adjusted her backpack and slipped on the rocks and was either going to fall into the rocks or go head first into the creek. And she dove into the creek with her glasses, her backpack, and everything that she had. And she came up laughing coming out of the water. It was delightful. It really was. Very charming because, a lot of people would be screaming, they'd be upset, they'd be whatever. She's laughing at herself. And so she wasn't going to go swimming, but she was the first one to take a swim. And so when we got up to the swimming hole, she decided, well, I'm already wet, I might as well go swimming. And so we went in and cooled off in this big pool of water here. As Chris said, the water coming down through here created quite a current. There were vines that were dropped into the water. Trent scaled this rock up here and jumped off into the water, and he did all the things that I would love to do if I wasn't 56 years old. But we had a wonderful time of recreation. It was fun, good fellowship. There's Eileen with her daughter, and there's Amit taking the daughter out into the water to enjoy the water for a few moments. There we are. And at this point, the two of us had no bug repellent on our legs. And if it wouldn't be immodest, I would show you my legs and the 100 red little bitty bumps I have all over where the kabur flies and the no-see-ums ate me up. And so Rebecca calls me the other day and goes, I'm concerned. I'm wondering if Trent's having a reaction to the malaria medicine he took. He's got these itchy little red bumps. I said, nope, that's not malaria. Those are bug bites. So she was comforted in that, and I sent her after some little cream to stop the itching. But there's the Four Musketeers there after our little jaunt to the waterfall. These were our accommodations. You saw the outside. It looked like a chicken coop. Perhaps some of your chicken coops are in better shape than this building was. The Kyman house was full. Some of you may be familiar with the TV show, I think it's Discovery Channel, Naked and Afraid. Guess what they were filming while we were there? And all the crews and everything had the Kyman house booked up, and they had 2 people off. This is how remote this area is where we are. That they can film that show where they put 2 people out in the middle of nowhere with nothing, and they film them trying to survive for 21 days. The day we left was the 21st day. We don't know how it turned out. So we got stuck in the secondary place, and it was not quite as nice as the Kyman house. But it sufficed. I slept pretty well. I think everybody else did too. We were hot. We had our nets, which were with no screens and open louvers. You would die if you did not have nets. This is where we would sit every night. We had no electricity. We had running water when Mark went out and rigged the tank where we could have running water because they kept cutting it off on us. But I kept us in water. But we had no electricity, so we would take a flashlight, and you see this bottle of water without a label on it, and we would put the flashlight up against the bottle here, and it would illuminate the whole room well enough where we could see at night. And we would sit there, and we would debrief, and we would joke, and we would share, and you want to get to know somebody, go to a place where there's no electricity, and spend the evening with them talking, because no phones, no nothing. It's actually personal interaction, and it's wonderful. These were our toilet facilities. This is the shower. Pictures are a little dark, but you kind of get the idea. That is the outside. That paneling right there is the outside. In Upakari, this is the preacher, Elroy McGarrell. He's a graduate from the second class of students. He was leading singing at night. We had a meeting every night. You can see it was well attended. Very thankful that things went as well as they did. We had a number of responses during the 3 nights that we were there. I spoke on the first night. Thomas George and I both spoke Tuesday night and Wednesday night, and then Wednesday night we packed up and we left. And got back to Lethem about midnight after riding those roads all night. We had probably 10 or 12 responses during the week for prayers and confession of sin and other things such as that. It was a wonderful visit back with the Christians there in Upakari. There's Brother George speaking there. If you look closely enough, you can see how shiny I am. And that's strictly because it was hot, it was humid. We were in the bush of Guyana. And so it was exceptionally hot in that building. You had to step outside where it was in the 90s to cool off. And there's our trip to Guyana. Now, I want to reiterate the importance of everybody's involvement in this work. Whether you are praying, whether you're giving me $1, whether you are making dresses, whether you are buying coloring books, whether you are doing anything, you are helping with that mission effort. And we are very grateful for everything that everybody did to make this trip possible. I'm very excited for Trent, exposed him to a whole new world that he had very little knowledge of. I'm hopeful that in the future he'll be able to return with us. His father has expressed a desire to go with us. He's an EMT. He would be a great asset on our medical missions. And we would love for anyone that wants to go and be a part of this effort. If you let me know, I will tell you what you need to do, and we'll make it happen. Janet Harmon is going with us in February. She is a nurse. She's going on the medical team with us. We have 4 nurses and 1 confirmed nurse practitioner. A second one I heard today that may be going. I've got to speak with that individual. Still looking for a doctor to go, and but with the nurse practitioners, we'll be able to distribute medications, and that's the key thing. As Trent mentioned, our nurses that go through a 2-year program in the United States have about the same training that the doctors do in Guyana. As a matter of fact, I would put their training up against any of the doctors in Guyana, and they probably are better trained, simply because our nurses do continuing training. They don't have anything as far as medical attention is concerned. So when Chris goes off and Angie goes off and they go and visit a couple of houses and do some blood pressure checks and talk to people about their diet and their habits and those kinds of things, that's more than they've probably ever experienced in their entire life. These efforts are so important because they open the door for the gospel to get to people. And anything we can do, even if it's just a coloring book, if it opens the door to the gospel, that's what we want to do. Anything that is not sinful or forbidden, obviously, we want to do to open the door for the gospel. Medical missions help open the door. Last year we had 300 people in that church building you just saw come through in 3 days for our efforts. And with this next trip, we're going to 2 different villages and spending 2 to 2.5 days in each of those villages. And we're going to go to one, and then we're going to go to the other. And we're going to be doing gospel meeting at night and medical mission all day. And it's going to be an outstanding trip. It looks like we're going to have 10 or 12 people on the trip. So that's very exciting to be able to take that many people down. If some of them decide they want to stay over while I'm teaching and do some other things while they're there, I will welcome it. If I'm left by myself, that's fine. I'm used to that while I'm there. But it's always nice to have others who are there. So I covet your prayers for the work. I'd be happy to talk to you about anything that's going on down there. If you have any specific concerns, questions, suggestions, whatever they may be, I welcome those things. I'll be happy. I've been going, that was my 12th trip in 10 years. I'll be happy to tell you I know just about everything we can do there and the things that we can't. So if you come up with a suggestion and it's something we haven't thought of, I'll gladly entertain that. You young people, I want to encourage you that if you don't go to Guyana, that you find a place to go to at some point. As you grow up and as you experience these things and as you go to places where people are not quite as blessed as you are, it will give you a much greater appreciation for what you have, for where you are, and for what God has done for you and your family by placing you where you are. And it will prick your heart to help those that don't have what you have. And so I would encourage you that as you get older, consider it. Come talk to me about it. If you're under 16, I'm going to need one of your parents to go. All shucks. Right? And so I'm going to get a 2-for-1 if you're under 16 and you want to go. If you're over 16, with parents' permission, I will gladly take you down there. Some of us older folks, if you want to go, come talk to me. If you want to teach, if you want to preach, if you want to just be there to encourage, whatever it is, come talk to me. I'll take you. And I'll introduce you to some amazing people in Guyana. People that you will recognize because you see pictures of them every time I come back. They're wonderful people. They're so grateful for everything that is done for them. There's another campaign down there right now that came in on the heels of us. It went to another village. A good friend of mine, Roger Comstock, is conducting it. There's another one that is going in October. David Myers from down in Florida has taken a group in there, including a lady from my former congregation in Kentucky. There are constantly trips being planned to go in to share the gospel and to encourage the Christians there. So thank you all. I appreciate your attention. I appreciate you coming out tonight. You saw a lot of duplicate pictures because we were all in the same place taking the same pictures. But I wanted to share some of those things with you. From my perspective, I'm so thankful for Trent and Chris and what they did, as well as Angie, and for the perspective that they gave you tonight. As long as I'm physically able and the Lord wills, I'll be going. It is a passion of mine. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, that 10 years ago, I went down and I left my heart there, and I go and I visit it every year. Love those people. And they inspire me to continue doing what I do here in the States, because it's a shot in the arm when I get to go spend time with them. It really is. Thank you to the elders for their support, to you all individually for your support, and God bless you, because everyone shares in what happened on that trip, as they will for the trip in February, and then next September, and continuing on, should the Lord will, that we continue to do these things. I want to encourage you from the scriptures for just a moment about the importance of sharing the gospel. In Philemon, verse 6, Paul, writing to Philemon, says that the sharing of your faith may become effective by the acknowledgement of every good thing which is in you in Christ Jesus. The acknowledgement of every good thing that is in you. You want to share the gospel, talk about what God's done for you. That's what we do when we go to Guyana. That's what we need to be doing here. Talk about what God's done for you. And if you don't know what God has done for you, we need to sit down and talk. Because God's done more for you than you can possibly imagine. And what you don't know, I'd love to tell you. You see, God loved you so much that before he made you, he sent Jesus to die for you because he knew you would need saving. He loved you that much. And if he never did another thing for you, he did more than you ever deserve. And he's done so much more than just that. He's blessed us. He's made us a family. And he's prepared a place for us where we can go and we won't get bug bites, and we won't be hot and sweaty, and we won't be hungry. I lost 10 pounds on this trip. I lost 7 pounds in 7 days. between the flights going in and coming back out, because there are just times where we couldn't eat. But the blessings of God are just phenomenal, and the place that he's prepared for us is and this is a small taste of it right here. You know, we have brothers and sisters that are enjoying singing tonight. That's a small taste of heaven. We're looking at brethren that some of you may never meet this side of eternity, but when you get to heaven, you'll see them, and you'll go, I know you. I helped send people down there to teach you the gospel. The sharing of your faith may be effective in the acknowledgement of all the good things that God has done for you. Jesus sent his son, or God sent his son Jesus to die for you. If you're here tonight and you've never named the name of Christ, that you've never accepted that sacrifice as being something that you need, do you believe in Jesus Christ as the Son of God? Are you willing to confess that you believe he's the Son of God? Turn from your sins and be immersed in water that is baptized for the remission of your sins. God will apply the blood of Jesus to your soul. You will come up, raised to walk in a new life, clothed in Christ, added to his precious body, the church, saved from your sins, and in a position to share your faith by acknowledging all the good things that God has done for you. For those of us who have done that, maybe you need encouragement tonight through prayers for whatever. We'd love to help you with that. Our brothers prepared a song for us. So if you have a need, won't you please come as together we stand and sing.